This is Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
The Fantasy Footballers. Back again, mock draft episode. Always exciting.
That
always
means it's
fun.
not a real draft, it's a pretend draft.
It's a mock draft.
Oh, I thought that's where you
Nobody
make
knows
fun of the draft.
More about being mocked than Jason, so he will be
I can lead the show.
Instrumental. Welcome to the show. Today is Tuesday, June 20th. Now, I sort of am lying when I say that, but you're listening to it right now, Tuesday, June 20th. We are recording this a few days early as we are in FSTA, the conference in New York City for the Fantasy Sports Trade Association. So we are up there, recorded this show ahead of time.
More than likely, when I say this word, go, that means I'm probably hugging J.J. Zacharyson.
Okay.
Just so people, they want to be there.
Because you assume the entire trip at New York,
so
you're
many
going to
hugs.
be
Me and
just
JJ, so
nonstop.
many hugs. Yeah.
You guys are way too close. But we are recording a mock draft episode today, a two-quarterback mock, drafting PPR League from the 6th spot. So that's what we're doing on the show today.
And point to the wise as well. This is also a Superflex mock. Because if you are in a Superflex and you are not playing with the strategy of two quarterbacks, you are doing Superflex wrong, in my opinion.
Have had several requests for two-quarterback mock drafts. And so I tell you that we're recording it a couple of days early because if something happens to one of these players and we draft them.
Like Eric Decker.
Yeah, and we draft them and something happens, you know why. So, all right, quick question of the day, one that Mike brought up in the studio recently. He basically said, look, historically speaking, we've been talking all about the big three, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell.
You got to get one of them.
In some order that you prefer. You got to get one. But historically speaking, one of those three players will bust. Okay?
Say it ain't so.
And so the quick question of the day is this. Who would it be? Like, we are not projecting a bust for any of these players.
No, we all love all three, clearly.
But, you know, gun to your head, you have to tell me why one of these three are going to bust. Who would you pick? Who would you bet your house on if you had to bet on one player busting of the big three?
Well, I think that if one of these players busts,
You have it.
I know it's tough. There's reasons that you could make for any of the three. I could talk about all three and the problems that could come up. But I do believe if one of them busts, it will actually be not because of the quarterback or not because of, a regression in fantasy points, but because of injury. That's what, if one of these three doesn't produce this year, it's probably going to be because one of them got injured. And if I have to project that, which I don't like doing, clearly it has to be Le'Veon Bell. I mean, you've got two young guys who came into the league in Ezekiel Elliott and David Johnson that don't have the workload in the NFL that Le'Veon Bell has, and they don't have the injury history that Le'Veon Bell has, having, missed considerable portions of the last few years due to a few different injuries, and or suspension.
Now, to be fair, DJ, who, by the way,
David Johnson, you're talking about?
David Johnson.
Who are you talking about again?
David Johnson. We're having a conversation with DJ. He's a good friend of the show. He's joining us again Thursday.
Yes,
right?
David Johnson on the show Thursday. So the David Johnson.
The one and only. But my point was he left last year, the final game, grade 2 MCL.
And that's one thing we'll ask him about is carrying a heavy workload in the NFL as a young player.
That's what I'm talking about, Mike. You can't injure him. That hit was tragic looking. And just a sprain.
All right, so you're going with Le'Veon Bell. I completely agree. In fact, a report came out recently from Todd Haley kind of alluding to the fact they will have to at least look at attempting to take Lev Bell off the field if they can.
That.
It's so hard to do.
But I'll just go from a pure workload standpoint. We know the role carved out for David Johnson and Ezekiel Elliott. And we know exactly what Pittsburgh wants to do with Lev Bell, which is to feed him the rock all of the time. So all three of these players will not bust if they're healthy. But I'll go with Le'Veon Bell as the most likely to be injured.
And I'm going to throw out Ezekiel Elliott because of any of these players, his situation has actually gotten worse. That offensive line took a few hits, and they've Leary, I believe Ronald Leary, is that correct, Brooks?
Yeah.
He left.
Doug Free retired.
And Leary left for the Broncos, and they've tried to patch the Leary hole with Jonathan Cooper. And we can tell you firsthand that that's not a hole that will stay plugged.
No, that boat's going down.
But also, and I looked up why Ezekiel Elliott was my original. I think if anyone can bust out of this, it's because he wasn't involved in the passing game. Then, of course, news out of Dallas says they're going to try and get him. Oh, do we get the train? Oh, the news out of Dallas is they're going to try and get him more involved in the passing game, which makes sense. This is like Todd Gurley his rookie year. They didn't pass him the ball for some weird reason, even though his production profile in college says that he's a great pass catcher. Elliott, great all-around and a great pass catcher. But the snap percentage for Ezekiel Elliott over the year was actually 71%. I just did the math. Meanwhile, David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, they're in the high 80s, low 90s for snaps, and Ezekiel Elliott was only in for 90% of snaps one time. So if anyone, there's just a couple factors of that. If any of the big three are going to bust, it's Elliott. And all the positive game scripts that he had last year, the Dallas defense has gotten considerably worse over the offseason. So that's my
total
pick.
fantasy points scored for Dallas was well above what they usually put out, which I think Pro Football Focus wrote an article on that. So there could be regression in store for the entire Dallas offense.
Could be. That could be the new normal because it's new quarterback, new running back.
But you need to remember this. Todd Gurley was the unbustable last year for people. Well, look, nothing changed with – he did not get injured, and he did not have a workload change. So you thought it was an impossibility for him to not be a top 5 guy.
A lot of people did, yes.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with
a lot of people did.
Yeah, I was going to say,
he wasn't
I remember Mike
wasn't on
throwing
the
plenty
same,
of shade.
Wasn't on the same level as these other guys, but yes. All right, we'll move on. If you want to follow us, we're on Twitter, @theFFBallers. Check out the show over on Twitter. The website is thefantasyfootballers.com, and we want to invite you over to jointhefoot.com, our fantasy football community. You can join more than 2,800 other fantasy football players who are in the community, talking to one another, joining leagues together, offering up some trade advice, keeper advice, all of that. We just had a show last week about how important it is to have a community of people you're talking to, so check it out at jointhefoot.com. And like Mike said, David Johnson on the show on Thursday, do not miss it. From time to time, we like to jump into a review from our listeners. We appreciate all of your reviews on iTunes and wherever you're listening to the podcast. And so we're going to go ahead and read one right now.
Review-a-Saurus Rex.
This one comes in from Sassy Veggie from the United States of America, titled The Smash Jackson of Fantasy Podcast.
Oh.
The podcast is for everyone. There's the industry and stat breakdown for the hardcore players, humor for those just wanting to have fun, and a sense of community, like you were just talking about, Andy, for those looking for fantasy to be a little bit more than just a game.
I love it.
Thank you, Sassy Veggie.
Those are 3 pillars that I would be glad to have the show stand upon, but I have a question here.
All right.
The whole concept of Smash Jackson was that we were rebranding something that was kind of mediocre and just giving it a really good name. I really hope that's not what the Sassy Veggie is implying. That we're mediocre and we just have a really good name.
Smash Jackson has taken over a new thing. Smash Jackson, the name, is the new Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Okay, the amount of tweets I see talking about how,
my entire feed is filled with Smash Jackson.
Smash Jackson once, kicked off the ball and caught it in the end zone for a touchdown.
Smash Jackson is taking over the world. So we hope that Mr. Perkins can oblige, or maybe we'll move that nickname around. We may have to. So, all right, thank you for your review. As I said, you can do that on the Apple Podcasts app. Just look up the show, leave us a review, positive or negative.
Preferably positive.
Preferably positive. If you like the show, yeah, check it out. All right, let's move on to the mock.
The Fantasy Footballers Mock Draft.
I did want to quickly remind people, FootClanGiveaway.com, we're giving away a signed Lev Bell jersey, a DFS pass, and a bunch of swag from the show. And there is a little bit of time left before July when we give that away. So head over. All right, 2 quarterback mock draft. Man, I love these shows. Very popular shows. This time we're going to draft from the 6th spot. 2 QB mock, like I said, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, tight end, flex.
PPR?
PPR.
Now, right. Imagine, or should we talk about this first?
Yeah, let's talk about the format.
Yeah, so it's a 2 quarterback league. Brings up the importance of the quarterback because the supply and demand issue
changes.
It changes drastically because now there's not just one, there's 2. However, when I play a 2 quarterback league, I still wait. I'm not waiting until the 10th round because I want Alex Smith to be my QB1. Now maybe him as my QB2. That's maybe
is it
negotiable.
Is it better to say that you're, and you can correct me, but you're patient with quarterback in a 2 quarterback league, even though the supply and demand changes, you're still willing to be patient.
Yeah, I'm not going first round quarterback.
I agree. If I'm doing it, usually I'm not going first round quarterback because the value can still be found later with quarterbacks. I mean, when you look at the quarterback 12, 15, 17 as far as average draft position, those are guys I project, at quarterback 8. You don't find that with running backs. So by that sense, I think you're right that you should be patient, draft tier-based in quarterbacks. However, there is still one of the reasons why late quarterbacks work so well is because of streaming. You can actually play successfully off of the waiver wire every single week and succeed. You cannot do that in a 2 quarterback league.
Not as easy.
There will be a time or two through the season that a quarterback's going to come up on waivers due to injury or breakout or whatever. Maybe you can grab him, but it's not there. At the end of this draft, and this is something worth saying, in a 2 quarterback league, you have to end the draft with 3 quarterbacks.
Yes.
You must have 3 quarterbacks on your team so that you can actually play, the matchup every now and then. Have a bye week support fill in.
All right. We're kicking off this 2 quarterback draft. Our team is drafting, like I said, from the 6th spot. You know who went number 1?
Oh, of course.
Aaron Rodgers is my guess.
No.
Oh.
He's a guest on the show this week.
Of course. I give not enough credit to this system because my number 1 pick would have certainly been David Johnson.
David Johnson, number 1. Number 2, Tom Brady. Number 3, Aaron Rodgers. So 2 quarterbacks off the board in their top 3. Not surprising to me in this format. Lev Bell and Zeke, they go 4-5. So those owners can be counting their blessings. And so first 5, you have the big 3 and 2 quarterbacks.
Just wanted to jump in real quick. See if you guys are feeling the same way as I am. Because of how desperately I want one of the big 3 running backs, DJ Lev Elliott, on my team, it almost feels like a letdown that we have to draft Antonio Brown or Odell Beckham. Like, that's so ridiculous.
In a full PPR right now, we're drafting, at the 6th spot, and Antonio Brown, who very well could be worthy of that number 1 overall pick, is there.
You wouldn't have felt that way if it went DJ, Zeke, Bell, and then 2 quarterbacks. You'd be like, oh, my gosh, Antonio Brown just dropped to me.
Maybe because we were one off.
Bell and Zeke went 4-5, you're feeling that letdown that one didn't get to you.
I'm saying even when the quarterbacks aren't going, you're just like, fine, I'll take Julio Jones.
Right.
Which is such a ridiculous.
Yeah.
So who's the pick for us here? We have
the pick here.
We have the big 3 wide receivers still. Antonio Brown,
Antonio
ODB.
Brown. The only, you've got Antonio Brown, Julio, and Odell Beckham, and then you do have still of the rest of the quarterbacks on the board. You have at least elite options at Andrew Luck and Drew Brees, but as we were talking about earlier, I think we'll get much better value waiting. We're not going to replace Antonio Brown. We can replace a Drew Brees who has terrible home road splits.
Is it Antonio Brown? Are we good with that?
We differ on Beckham and Julio and that rank, but all 3 of us consensus have Brown at number 1.
All right, Antonio Brown off the board. First man on our roster. Hey, look, 2 more quarterbacks. Drew Brees, Matt Ryan go 7 and 8. Odell Beckham Jr., Julio Jones, Mike Evans, LaShawn McCoy round out round number 1. Andrew Luck starts round 2. Melvin Gordon, A.J. Green, and a trifecta of quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, Derek Carr, Cam Newton. Guys, there are a number of quarterbacks off the board. Obviously, this is something that a 2-quarterback league is going to face.
And this is where
we
talked about last episode or last week. We talked about don't draft afraid. Okay, some quarterbacks are going. The worst thing we could do here at this spot is draft a quarterback. Because if you look at who's on the board,
I don't think I agree with you at all.
Oh my goodness! So here, let's make the argument for each side then, so that we can kind of understand the logic. So right now on the board, we could take Devonta Freeman, an absolute elite. He's my running back for, a complete RB1, the only running back in the NFL who's had 2,000 yards rushing the last 2 seasons. No one else has done that. We could draft him, or we could draft a guy like a Jameis Winston, a Kirk Cousins.
Did you say 2,000 yards rushing?
Has had 2 seasons of 1,000 yards rushing back to back the last 2 seasons. We could draft, Jameis, Kirk Cousins, Mariota. But if we wait a couple more rounds, get in the 4th round, we'll get a Phillip Rivers or an Andy Dalton, which to me are virtually interchangeable when it comes to the tiers. Whereas a couple rounds from now, when Devonta Freeman and DeMarco Murray,
does that change if Russell Wilson was on the board still?
If
Andrew Luck was still on the board?
If Andrew Luck was here.
Quarterbacks are going to continue to go is my point.
Yes.
But how many teams have already taken one quarterback? That's something that you need to
I guess what my point
out.
is just when we look at tiers and the tier-based drafting, I don't think there is – if Andrew Luck was here, which obviously he wouldn't
I would
be at
say
this
if Andrew Luck was
late,
here, I would take him over Devonta Freeman.
Sure, and I would have no problem with that because then you're actually getting
Yes, and
an
I agree.
elite
In this
option.
situation, the only quarterback to consider for me would be Kirk Cousins, and I'm not willing to take him over Devonta Freeman.
Yeah, he's my quarterback like 13, I think so.
Okay, so is Devonta Freeman the pick for you, Mike? Because we have Devonta Freeman, Jordy Nelson, DeMarco Murray, Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi, Todd Gurley, Gronkowski still on the board here in the 2nd round, difference-making tight end.
It would be Jordy or Freeman for me.
Okay, well, then the pick is Freeman because we already passed on, we didn't get one of those elite 3 in the 1st round, and you drafted Antonio Brown. You can fill out another position with an elite talent.
And this is 2 wide receivers and a flex, not 3 wide receivers and a flex. So I think
Right.
running back is going to be nice. I mean, starting your draft with an absolute stud at both running back and wide receiver is a great start.
All right, Jordan Howard went right after our pick, then Marcus Mariota, Jordy Nelson, Jameis Winston, Michael Thomas, Jay Ajayi, T.Y. Hilton, Ben Roethlisberger, DeMarco Murray, Dak Prescott. So 4 more quarterbacks off the board after our pick here, but we have Devonta Freeman and Antonio Brown, a great foundation. Des Bryant still on the board here in the 3rd round. Woo. Rob Gronkowski, Kirk Cousins still sitting there, one of our higher-rated quarterbacks, Matthew Stafford, Phil
Todd Gurley, Lamar Miller.
I feel like the quarterback run is going to cool off here in the next couple rounds. So if I was running this as my own draft, I would still continue to wait, even though Kirk Cousins would be a delightful quarterback 1. I feel like he could possibly come back.
The 2 picks for me are Gronkowski or Gurley at this position. I'm sure you'll put Des Bryant in there.
Des Bryant is absolutely in there for me. I was going to throw out –
But Gronkowski, 6th pick of the 3rd round.
Yeah, I was going to throw out Gronk. Let's see what the team makeup becomes. We're in a 2-quarterback league. We're taking a tight end early. We're doing some things that maybe seem a little dicey. But you want to get nuts.
Yeah,
it's not nuts to draft the best tight end in the league in the 3rd round.
One of the difficulties I will say about drafting a tight end in a 2-quarterback league is just the fact that because now there are 3 positions that have position scarcity where you've got to have depth, you've got to have that type of a roster makeup. When you take that tight end early, it will make you a little weaker elsewhere. Usually for me,
no, you're right.
when I do these 2-quarterback leagues, I am going like I completely punt the tight end. I'm going Eric Ebron if I can get him late. If not, then I go. I'll go David Njoku.
Did you see the career numbers comparison of Rob Gronkowski and Randy Moss?
No.
And there's like 4 metrics where they have almost identical numbers on. It was absolutely incredible. You got to look this up. I wish I could give credit to the right Twitter account. I know Scott Barrett retweeted it. So you might want to.
right.
You can pull it up on your screen.
That's
over
funny.
there.
I was just talking to Jason over lunch about the greatness that was Randy Moss.
Randy Moss. You can reminisce about Randy Moss
Huh.
any time you want. That's a known fact.
All right. So where, Jason?
I'm going Gronk here.
Okay, you're going Gronk. Well,
I
I'll go
wanna
with it
see
for
what
this-
happens.
To see what happens.
I
So
would go Gurley or Miller, but I understand this is a mock. We can play and see what happens.
Well, Mike bet correctly. The quarterback run cooled off. Only one quarterback off the board between 306 and 406.
It was Cousins, though.
And it was Kirk Cousins. Des
all right.
Bryant, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins back-to-back after our Gronk pick. Then you saw Cousins go off. Then the rookie Leonard Fournette.
Well, that means there's
Miller, Gurley, Baldwin, Cooks, Robinson, Lynch, and C.J. Anderson. So we have a roster right now. Someone read it back.
We got Devontae Freeman, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski. I just wanted to throw out really quick. Cecil Lammey was on Twitter, and he covers a lot of Broncos stuff, and he was talking about how great C.J. Anderson has looked. So it's just we're in hype season. I get it, but it's good to hear that Anderson's looking good right now for a guy who
last week on
has
the player that I was changing on. He was in consideration for me.
Anderson frequently has bad news given about him during the offseason. So to get a positive report about him, should it be it's his starting job? Jamal Charles is still not doing anything. Just throwing that out there.
Here is the per-game averages over their career. Targets per game. Gronkowski, 7. Randy Moss, 8. Receptions per game, 4.6 to 4.5. Yards per game, 69.3 to 70.1. Yards per target, 9.9 to 8.8. Touchdowns per game, 0.77 to 0.72.
So it was, but
Gronkowski
it
is
was
ahead.
actually just a Scott tweet.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, Scott, stop invading our show.
The fire tweets out there, but that doesn't include all of Randy Moss's years for the Raiders.
Year.
It was there a couple years.
It felt like an eternity, I'll be honest. All right, so here we stand. We got plenty of great players on the board at all three: wide receiver, running back, and quarterback. Kirk Cousins being the only quarterback that went. That means there's probably about 3 guys that will finish the year higher than him still on the board.
Oh, get out of here.
I did it. I still love Matthew Stafford. He's probably top of my list. Phillip Rivers. Andy Dalton, we could probably get around later. So when you want 3 quarterbacks, you take a look at the total quarterbacks left and say, okay, if I've got to have 3 of them, do I like enough, to wait another round? And I'm at the point now where I think I would like to grab 1 or 2 of these guys and then wait for the third.
I want Matthew Stafford here.
That would be my pick.
I don't want to have no viable QB1 here. If Stafford went and we didn't take him and Rivers went, I'd be feeling really, really sour having to go with Tyrod or Eli or, Dalton I'd be okay with, but
Yeah,
not
I'd be
necessarily
great
as
with
my
Dalton.
one
I'd
in
be
a
okay
2
with
QB
Dalton.
league. You leave yourself open to a lot of risk when you take – we say this all the time. Generally early-ish quarterback, and then you can do the waiting game. If you're leaning on Dalton and you get what happened last year, we can like him, but you leave yourself up to tons of risk if you're rolling Dalton and Wentz out there.
I still think Stafford carries a lot of that downside risk like Dalton had last year.
Oh,
How?
You're crazy.
He's 4,200-plus yards for like 6 straight years.
He's been a top 12 quarterback for the last 5 years.
You're going to lose
Right.
that fight.
There's
There's not risk associated with
Last year
it.
in the middle of the season, he was very bad.
No, he wasn't.
No, he's fine.
Okay,
I'll
pull up
He had a
exactly.
game or 2 that might have been down, but he was by week 6 he was the number 2 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he started fantastic. From weeks 1 to 6, he was second, and then from weeks 7 to 13, he was 19.
Okay.
In that time period, that's bad.
Well,
that's a
are you
long stretch
including
of
a
being
bye
bad.
week in there?
No, in points. That's points per game.
Okay. Well,
I just say that I think Stafford has downside to by the end of the year. Yeah, he'll probably be a QB1, but he can disappear just like Andy Dalton can. That was
I think
my
if
only
we have
point.
3 quarterbacks, we'll be fine. This is just why I would have preferred to grab a running back last round over Gronk.
Yeah, no, I'm having Gronk regrets because I want to take a running back here. But if you want to take Stafford, we can go with that pick.
Well, we got a 2/3 vote, so we'll go Stafford.
Matthew Stafford off the board. Alshon Jeffrey right after him. Another quarterback, Phillip Rivers, goes at the 12th spot of the 4th round. And we enter the 5th with Isaiah Crowell, Joe Mixon, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Adams, and Mike's favorite player, Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde. All right, so we're
Still taking first-team reps. Gotta believe.
Sitting here with Stafford, Freeman, Brown, and Gronk. I like the way that looks in a 12-team, 2-quarterback league. A lot to fill out here. Sammy Watkins on the board at the wide receiver position, Golden Tate, Crabtree. You also have Ingram, Ty Montgomery,
One of the
Spencer
things this
Ware.
shows you in a
It's very
PPR,
thin at running back right now.
It's very thin in running back. In a PPR league, it's had we got that other running back, the wide receivers still on the board right now are excellent.
They're juicy.
For a PPR league to be able to get a Golden Tate, Larry Fitzgerald, Crabtree, or Watkins, that's incredible. But like you said, the running backs are uninspiring.
You have to take a running back here, in my opinion, because you named 4 guys at wide receiver. I also see Stephon Diggs, Julian Edelman.
Oh, I love Stephon
Terrell
Diggs.
Pryor. So I think one of those guys that we'll be very content with
We'll make it back.
alongside Antonio Brown will make it back. So what is our best bet at a solid RB2 from Ingram, Montgomery, Ware, Powell, Coleman, Dalvin Cook, Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, Smash Jackson is on the board at 31.
Smash Jackson will be on the board for a while.
Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
A lot of news out of Saints camp on the hype train about Adrian Peterson.
I just can't buy a ticket right now.
Understandable. So
when I look at these guys,
I just don't want to
I
draft
agree.
any of them.
And that's how I feel. I agree
Shut
completely.
it down. The mock is done.
If you're telling me, Frank Gore might be the next best pick, but there's no reason to pick him here because he's not going to go before our next pick.
Yeah, he's not.
Theo Riddick might be in a full PPR league as good a pick as Mark Ingram by the end of the year. The difference between all these garbage running backs on the board is a crapshoot.
All right, Mike, give it a thought what you might like at running back, or if
Sure.
you like a running back. I'm going to hit the pause button. Want to say thanks to our sponsor today, pristineauction.com. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, the Stephon Diggs jersey and the Pristine Auction logo on the wall. We are huge fans of Pristine Auction. They're who we get our giveaway items through. They're how we cover our entire office and studio with their
Best
gear.
sports memorabilia site of all time.
See what they have.
Of all time.
Here's your challenge today. Go on to pristineauction.com, Pristine auction.com. See what they have for your hometown team. I do this way too often. But I went on there the other day when I was looking at Father's Day stuff. I was looking at some Arizona Diamondbacks gear. My dad loves the Diamondbacks. See what they have for your home team. It doesn't cost you anything to register. Let them know the Fantasy Footballer sent you. Check out their sports memorabilia inventory and their daily auctions. That's pristineauction.com.
And we also want to thank Omaha Steaks, and we really want to thank them because
My belly wants to thank them.
because of meat. Meat is delicious and awesome, and they have a new deal, a new summer sensation package of meat. This is a true story. So I got the Omaha Steaks deal because it was too good. I literally got a grill so that I could Omaha Steaks.
Ooh.
So, it's such a good deal. You can go out and
He just
get a
verbed
grill.
that.
Here is what the summer sensation package includes. You're talking 2 filet mignons, 2 top sirloins, 4 boneless pork chops, 4 chicken fried steaks, 12-ounce package of all beef meatballs, 4 Omaha steak burgers, 4 gourmet jumbo franks, 16 ounces of Omaha Steakhouse fries, the 4 caramel apple tartlets, their seasoning packets, plus 4 more Omaha Steaks burgers. It's great. All you need to do, go to omahasteaks.com. For $49, that's 80% off of that package. You just type the word fantasy into the search bar. A lot of people think, what's a coupon code? It's not a coupon code. Just in the search bar, type fantasy in that word, and then add the summer sensation to your cart. Again, visit omahasteaks.com, enter fantasy to get that package for $49.99 and have the best summer ever.
All right.
Who's our pick, Mike?
I've had some consideration. I'll let you guys weigh in here because you're not going to like either of these names.
Well, what were we doing giving it to Mike?
The 2 running backs that I would pick from, and I'll maybe throw a third one in there, would be Ty Montgomery, Amir Abdullah, and then I'll throw in Spencer Ware. But Spencer Ware is just – you're talking about an uninspiring pick. Spencer Ware, it's tough what to make of him with Kareem Hunt in there. Amir Abdullah, of course, is just – this is projecting of him getting better. And Ty Montgomery – I think he holds on to that running back 1 spot for Green Bay. And while he didn't get the volume towards or this similar volume towards the end of the season, he still had 2 games of over 10 targets. To get a running back who has that
PPR
in him,
potential.
the last 2 games of the season, 5 targets, 5 targets. If you take his pace, even without those 2 monster games, he's still on about a 60 target pace. I just think that Ty Montgomery has a lot of upside in a PPR.
I will agree with you, and I think you're rolling the dice on a number of factors with all of these guys. With
Yes.
Abdullah with injury, with Montgomery with snap percentage, with Ingram and Peterson, you'd be rolling the dice on who's getting what. Alvin Kamara.
Doesn't that say we should then draft a wide receiver or a quarterback that are good instead of trying to fill out that RB2 and then have a flex that could be either running back or wide receiver? If we just grab a great wide receiver and then another
Sammy
great
Watkins.
wide receiver, now our flex is going to be strong, and then we just need to find one plug-and-play option for running back later.
Yes.
I'm caught right in between that world. That's the direction I was thinking before we started talking about Pristine. But Sammy Watkins doesn't say, oh, I have to take him here.
Sammy Watkins to me says I have to take him, and the reason why is because he's got that top 5 upside.
And I agree with that.
And you go, okay, who's the next guy? If it wasn't him, who would I take? To me, Golden Tate, Michael Crabtree, and Fitz, they're all the same.
Low-end ones.
They're all great. I would love all of them. I'll grab one of them, whoever's left, but I would take Sammy Watkins.
Well, we did. We did.
Right.
You clicked the button with your brain, with your mind. Yeah, there you go. Sammy Watkins, we wanted to partner Rob Gronkowski with somebody else who's familiar with the back of an ambulance. Maybe not. Maybe that's putting it too harshly.
Is Jordan Reed still out there?
Oh, that's not nice. All right. Sammy Watkins, look, all the reports, if you're listening and you have some hope for Sammy Watkins, you should. He's, new offensive system. He's healthy right now. He's taking nearly all the reps at OTAs. I don't even know if he knew what they were before this year. So Sammy Watkins off the board, pairing him with Antonio Brown, a lot of upside. Missed out on Ty Montgomery. Travis Kelce went off the board.
There's still some guys
Andy
there.
Dalton's gone. He was my kind of dream QB2 that I knew wouldn't get around to me after we waited so long. Eli Manning went off the board as well. Jordan Reed's gone. We got Gronkowski 3-6. Wouldn't you rather have Jordan Reed 6-1, where he ended up going?
I'd rather have Eric Ebron 11-2.
And I would rather.
You wouldn't take.
I would have
you'd
Jordan
take
Reed.
Jordan Reed 6-1 versus Ebron 11-2.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't a heartbeat.
I wouldn't, and it's not because maybe in a keeper
Because you signed
situation.
you signed a deal with the devil on Eric
Yeah, you
Ebron
did.
in every draft.
No, the reason why is because I would
I'd
rather
have no tight end in the 11th.
What I am saying is that if you want to talk to me about what 11th round quarterback and or wide receiver I'm going to get to pair with Jordan Reed, and you look at that combination and say it's the same reason I would never have taken Gronk, because you're missing out on something when you have to have 3. You've got to have multiple quarterbacks, multiple running backs, multiple wide receivers. It makes it tough to take a tight end early. I punt the position to the end of days. Give me David Njoku with my last pick.
One might argue Rob Gronkowski counts as 2 positions.
Sure.
Compared to the other tight ends. That might be the argument you had. You had 2 positions. And, yes, you will – at the end of this draft, you were going to be able to look at would I rather have had, just like I did just now. If I knew Jordan Reed was going 6-1,
sure,
I wouldn't have taken Gronk either.
Yeah.
And
I think the Gronk value was there, but I get everything you're saying.
Your team never looks great when you take a Gronk early, but if Gronk plays a full season, you're in the championship contention.
All right, so quarterback options right now.
Yeah,
we're in the
that's
middle of the
where we are.
6th round. Tyrod Taylor, Blake Bortles, Carson Wentz, Carson Palmer, all the Carsons, Ryan Tannehill, Joe Flacco, etc. Ingram still on the board, Powell, Abdullah, Woodhead, and then a ton of wide receivers that I love. Golden Tate, Larry Fitzgerald, Emmanuel Sanders, Julian Edelman.
Stephen Diggs.
Yeah, there are.
If it were – so let me ask you this
Okay.
then. We took Sammy Watkins at the expense of a player we all like a lot, Andy Dalton. You could have had Andy Dalton and Golden Tate. You could have had Andy Dalton and Larry Fitzgerald, who finished, top 10 again last year. That might have been a better way to go.
Yeah,
Or we have Sammy Watkins and Carson Palmer, and I'd rather have Carson Palmer and Sammy Watkins than that previous combo.
I think that is a very close – if you told me, okay, this is a trade, who wins, I think it's close enough where it's debatable. However, I would probably rather have
the Dalton side.
the Dalton side.
So here, do you wait Are you willing to wait for another quarterback?
I'm not, because if you think about, okay, I need 2 of these guys. Some are going to go between picks. Am I going to use my next 2 picks?
Are we going in or out? I've lost track of the rounds.
Are
we on
well,
long
we're
way?
kind of in the middle.
Yeah,
Or are
we're
we
the
over
6
6?
picks.
Yeah,
so-
never mind.
Yeah.
Dang it.
So we have a full 12 to wait. Crabtree just went before us. Tyreek Hill went 6'5".
Yeah, I mean, for me, it would be Carson Palmer or Tyrod Taylor or, Larry Fitzgerald. Those are the 3 that stick out to me.
Yeah, I would go Fitz or Golden Tate here. I also like Julian Edelman, but do you want to double up on
I'm gonna take the
Pats?
quarterback because they're beyond Fitzgerald, beyond Tate. Edelman's there. Diggs is there.
Yeah, there is a lot of depth to wide receiver.
Yeah.
There are some high standout PPR guys there who I
But I think
would not be
Andy's
shocked
point,
if
Andy's
they're
point
all
here is that
drained.
there's so little
You're
depth
gonna be
left
happy
at
with
quarterback.
Yeah, there's nothing. Wentz, Flacco.
No, see,
Bortles?
I disagree. I'm happy with Taylor, Bortles, Palmer, Tannehill.
I'm happy with Taylor.
All right,
and
I'm
Carson
handing the
Palmer
pick
as
off.
my-
I'm handing the pick off to Jason.
All right,
I'm
then
gonna
it's
let him make the pick.
It's Carson Palmer. Close.
Carson Palmer was the number 3, I believe, in passer rating over the second half of the season.
He was actually really good over the second half of the season. He got better as the season
Look
went
at this
along.
little gift we got, Mike.
Oh, you were right.
Carson Palmer, we took him. Tyrod Taylor followed up. Julian Edelman, Carson Wentz. Great value on Julian Edelman, in my opinion, in the 6th round. Golden Tate's gone.
Ooh.
Ingram finally went.
So did Abdullah.
So did Abdullah,
That's-
but still on the board here. Primed for our flex position, although we need to talk running back as well. Larry Fitzgerald's still on the board.
Yeah, Larry Fitzgerald is there. Stephen Diggs is there. Both of those guys are elite to me in PPR. But you also have Frank Gore and Theo Riddick.
And
Two
Danny
guys-
Danny Woodhead.
Yeah, and Danny Woodhead.
Mike Gillisley.
This is where I'm glad we didn't take that, garbage level running back. Instead, we waited
Yeah.
to just find the
Oh,
value
no,
running back.
I'm happy with that decision right now.
You want to take Larry? I would take Larry.
I would take Larry.
In a PPR, I would take Larry.
Hey, come on.
Pair him with Palmer.
Double up.
Double up.
Double up.
You know who will
Yeah.
appreciate those 2 picks? Our guest on Thursday.
Yeah, David Johnson.
That's right.
All right.
I was hoping you'd say
So we're
it.
taking Larry.
I apologize.
We took Larry. You still have Gore on the board. Gore is built for the RB2.
Yeah.
That's what he in the factory on the instructions it says to create an RB2.
Add some Gore
Actually,
to some
it's-
Frank.
Yeah, add some Gore to some Frank.
Frank Gore, when we're talking about, Smash Jackson, Frank Gore
Is much more of a smash.
is an excellent running back name.
Yeah, Frank Gore.
My goodness,
absolutely.
that is a great name.
That strikes fear. Frank Gore.
I mean, what do you do when
I'm
you?
getting out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to draft him here.
You don't want to draft him? Is that genuine?
It is genuine.
Okay. Tell us why.
I'd rather draft somebody with slightly more upside, like
Okay, so-
Smash Jackson or Mike
Oh,
Gillisley.
there's no way I'm taking Paul Perkins over Frank Gore. You could talk me into Danny Woodhead or Theo Riddick if we're looking at the running back position.
Okay, you want Gore?
Hey, not
Now let me throw this out there. Okay. We've been saying
I'm
from
so sorry, Frank.
we've been saying from the
You know what
get-go-
he is? Here's the picture. You're walking through the store. You're trying to pick out, the hot new toy on the wall, and the one in the generic store packaging. It's just called running back, and it's just regular font, plain packaging. That's Frank Gore. Everything next to it, you see the Smash Jackson action figure. You've got a button you can push on it to see how it works.
It's like a Kirkland brand.
All right.
Yeah.
So here's what I would do. If I
Jason
get
was
the
not
pick.
into that.
I wasn't listening. I would go since we say that we need 3 quarterbacks in a 2 quarterback league. To me, there's only 1 quarterback left, one at all, that is in a massive teardrop, and that would be Sam Bradford. He's a starting quarterback. He's gonna, start 16 games. Once you get past him,
Well, maybe.
you're- Well,
I mean, we had this
Sure.
discussion at lunch that I consider Brian Hoyer a tremendous quarterback 3. I would take Brian Hoyer as my quarterback 2 in a 2 quarterback.
This is where
I
I'm
wouldn't-
not trying to fill my roster before taking the right pick, but I sure as heck am filling my RB2 before taking a QB3.
Yeah, but my point was, and Jason was pointing out, well, Brian Hoyer just never plays a full season.
You don't need that.
But for him to call Sam Bradford
Fair.
the picture of health. Sammy Biscuits is not one who
Crumbly.
makes it through 16 games.
All right, so then is it Gore? Is it Riddick? Is it Woodhead?
Sure, it's
to
Gore.
me, it would be Gore.
It's Gore because nobody wants to draft him. I have to click "Are you sure?" after I click the draft button. But we'll take Frank Gore. Here's our roster right now, this moment, as we head into our bench, our depth, maybe some things that something's going to make Jason happy in a minute. But Matthew Stafford, Carson Palmer, Devonta Freeman, Frank Gore, Antonio Brown, Sammy Watkins, Rob Gronkowski, and 100-plus reception target Larry Fitzgerald. That was the 8th-round pick, was Frank Gore. Now you're around into the 9th round. Ertz off the board, Woodhead gone, but Theo Riddick still sitting there on the board, as is Sam Bradford. Jason was talking about wanting a third quarterback, Dante Moncrief, Jamison Crowder, Willie Snead. The depth at wide receiver in this draft. Here's something worth looking at, right? Because of the two quarterback situation, I think what we saw in this draft is I didn't see a change at the depth available at running back, but I did see it at wide receiver. It seems like the early picks at quarterback gave a lot of depth to the wide receiver position late in the draft.
Right. And you need to use those early picks to get your running backs filled out because there's so few. At this point, though, I would go Sam Bradford just like I would last time because in my opinion, I believe he is the last true starting caliber talent left. Otherwise, you're talking Brian Hoyer, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Siemian, Mike Glennon, all guys that I think aren't going to actually be the starter for the whole season. Now, I like Theo Riddick a whole lot more than I like Sam Bradford as a fantasy asset.
Let me ask you this.
But I also really like C.J. Prosise.
Why would you take those
I also
four?
like Kenneth Dixon.
The reason you want this third quarterback is for injury.
Not just injury.
It's to stream matchups, too.
Yeah, matchup. I mean, you got to start 2 guys every week. And I could
Stafford
very easily.
and Palmer, you going to play Bradford over one of those guys even if –
Well, I mean, I guess
I can't see the matchup being streamed that way.
Well, if it was, take last year Denver, right? I benched, Drew Brees for other options when it's a true elite, but it is rare.
Well, I mean, you could take let's take a primo, like a juicy one. Carson Palmer, I don't have the schedule in front of me, so I don't know if this lines up, but Carson Palmer's in Seattle. Okay. Sam Bradford is at home against the Green Bay Packers. Would you go with the better quarterback and the better offense, or would you take that matchup that was absolute fantasy gold last year? That could change, but I'm saying right now.
No, that's a wonderful example. And in that, I would probably still go Carson Palmer. So your point is well taken.
And so then the counter of that is, hey, do you want to try to find another option at running back? Because you have 3 wide receivers. Frank Gore is long in the tooth.
Oh, we took Frank Gore. I forgot.
But you have Riddick. You have Perkins, a starter. You have Blunt, a starter. You have Forte, a starter.
How did we not take Smash Jackson?
I would absolutely take Smash Jackson.
There's
not
no way.
because of
Poor Riddick is going over Paul Perkins. Come on. We got to have some human
Don't you want to
decency.
take
I would take the starter.
Yeah, the potential
hot.
Your third running back, you want to look at a guy like Paul Perkins and say, what is the highest ceiling? You love Amir Abdullah.
I do.
Yeah, I know.
The highest ceiling for Theo Riddick is to catch the ball 80 times and not carry the ball at all. The highest ceiling for Perkins is to be a 3-down back on the Giants, a really good offense.
No, I'd see 0% chance of being a 3-down guy. 2-down guy, maybe goal line. Okay.
So you're just looking at it like, okay, Perkins is 2 down. Riddick might as well be 2 down. He'll play some second and definitely a lot of third.
Yeah, but he's a pass catching back on a pass first offense. I would 100% if we're
all
going.
Right, we need
apples
some help.
to apples. I'm going Riddick.
Brooks, we need some help.
I'm definitely on the Theo side.
Oh,
sure. Theo.
No, whoa.
Those jokes were so great.
Hey, that's a little too.
I can't even make a joke about Theo.
Huxtable? Nope. Not anymore.
Man.
Not
anymore.
Off the table.
He took those away from us?
Yes. No Jell-O jokes, no pudding
on.
Pops. Let's go on with the show.
We're moving on.
No.
All right.
Skip it up.
All right. We'll move down
Don't
the line.
make me scat, man.
Oh. Well, look, it's your lucky day again. Only one quarterback off the board, Deshaun Watson. Sam Bradford's still here in the 10th round. We're rounding out this roster. At this point, you could talk me into it, but look, Willie Snead, Corey Davis.
Willie Snead.
You still have Jonathan Stewart.
Willie Snead is in my 20s. For a PPR ranking, he's a wide receiver 2. To get him in the 9th round.
I love that we've talked to you. Hey, look, you don't have to say anything else. As long as I'm not drafting Sam Bradford right now, I'm a happy man. The debate is over. Willie Snead's been drafted.
What's
I'm glad we can make
is,
it.
Sorry, Mike.
I feel like we are, and we took 2 running backs. We almost have a Frankenstein quasi zero running back thing going on here.
That's
Right.
fair.
So
We went 1 RB.
Yeah, and we waited
Instead
a very
of 0
long time.
RB.
Yeah.
On accident. Mike Wallace, Devontae Parker off the board, 1009. Sam Bradford, I'm sorry, he's moved on. As has Trevor Siemian and Brian Hoyer. So
that's trouble.
Some people grabbing the last few
That's
starters,
trouble.
just like I tried to tell Jason. Mike Glennon, Jared Goff. If at this point, are you just taking one of those to have a third?
No.
Okay, so you're just punting.
I'm punting.
You're waiting
and
to
I'm gonna
sign
grab,
that third streaming bye-week
I'll
fill-in.
get Cody Kessler if with my last pick.
Or
if he's still
Deshaun
available.
Kaiser in week 4 when he becomes a starter.
Yeah,
or,
once you miss out, I mean, you can't play afraid. We say you have to have 3 quarterbacks. These are one of those,
Once the
air
ship has
quote
sailed.
rules. An air quote rule is not in stone. It's a helpful guide. When we want 3 quarterbacks, that doesn't mean that you go ahead and draft Jared Goff because you have to have one and leave, Eric Decker or John Brown on the waivers. That'd be silly.
Okay, let me throw this out here for you, and maybe now's not the time, but I want to keep your eyes on Terrence West. We know he has a very good early season schedule against the run during the time in which Kenneth Dixon is suspended. We have a team where you may even want to play. If Terrence West had a good week 1, you might play that matchup for Terrence West above a Frank Gore.
Yeah.
Depending on the week.
But both Frank Gore and Riddick, I don't know if I would.
I could very well
you
do.
can?
Yeah.
You have Joe Williams, young rookie, available. Alvin Kamara.
To me, the 2 guys I want are Alvin Kamara and Terrence West. I want those guys.
I want another running back here. I really do. I want another running back to add to the.
I'm saying I want both of those guys. So which one is making it back to us?
Which 2? Terrence West and Kamara?
Yeah.
They'll both make it back to us. Forte's still on the board. Some people might say, why not take Forte?
Yeah, I would. Why not?
Would you take Forte over Terrence West and Alvin Kamara?
Mike's making this pick. We got to move on, finish this draft out.
I believe I would take him over Terrence West. Taking him over Alvin Kamara just for the upside.
In a PPR?
In a PPR this late.
Make the pick, Mike.
I don't want to take a running back, though.
I'm going to make bad jokes again if you don't take a pick.
Do I have to take a running back?
I think so.
Yeah, you do.
Fine. Then I will take Alvin Kamara.
Alvin Kamara, welcome to the team. Welcome to the team, Alvin. All right, we are Alvin was another
We got 2 more bench spots.
I'm more happy with this pick if he brings his chipmunks.
Alvin.
Yeah,
No,
Simon and Theodore will do great for our team.
I'll just stop.
I got a smirk from him.
I just stop where I'm going. All right. We are here in the 12th round, actually seeing defenses start to pop up here. Tyrell Williams goes in the 12th.
Terrence West
Denver is
also
gone. Terrence
went.
West is gone, yeah. I thought he'd get around for sure. All right, John Brown.
John Brown is still there.
Jeremy Maclin is still there.
John Brown or Jeremy Maclin, I'd take John Brown in a heartbeat.
I would take Jeremy Maclin.
I would take Jeremy Maclin as well, and
Brooks?
that's coming from the John Brown truther.
He's outvoted, so he's trying to outsource.
You would
the vote.
take Jeremy Maclin.
I
Do your
would.
rankings reflect
Wait,
that?
Yes.
Who did Brooks?
Absolutely.
Who would you be taking?
Macklin.
Yeah.
So we have to draft Jeremy Maclin.
And I don't know if you guys care yet, since you have Fitz already, does that factor into
No.
that? Okay.
Not much, because if they both play well, then you can start them in the same week. And I don't feel like those are the type of players where if one goes down, the other gets a boost. They've got their own role kind of carved out.
All right, guys, last pick of the draft. Do you want to grab a third quarterback option? I don't see anybody available.
Read off the names so everyone can vomit
Tom
simultaneously.
Savage, Mitch Trubisky, Josh McCown, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Jimmy. All right, there's nothing.
McCown
I
will
would-
start
I'd
the year
probably-
okay,
I
but
would
by
draft
the time
McCown.
by the time that we would think about, okay, maybe we move him in. He looked good week 1. He
Josh
would already be
McCown
out.
is not going to play.
He'll start week 1.
The way
And blow
I don't
up.
I don't think so. I think the way that the Jets have proceeded through this tankopotamus of an offseason all they keep saying is they want to see the young guy. They want to see the young guy. They want to see
Which
the
young
young
guy?
Is it Hackenberg or is it Tom's
if you
brother?
can't decide between two young guys, your odds of having a young guy play are even higher. Why play Josh McCown?
To lose?
He might help you win.
Yeah, Josh McCown helps
Yeah,
you win more
Josh
than Bryce
McCown-
Petty.
There's no way that they don't want to see these young guys throw to all the other young wide receivers and talent. My take on the matter is Josh McCown's actually just going to be there to help a young guy be better.
Yeah, and I agree, but that's just narrative and speculation. The team is saying Josh McCown's the starter right now, so I would draft Josh McCown as if he were the starter.
And, that I get that. I don't think he'll be around. There's still plenty of wide receivers I really like.
But you don't get to pick any of them because I just took a guy to finish our draft.
All right, who do we draft?
Josh Doxson. We took Josh
All right,
Doxson
love it.
with the last pick
I
of the
have no
draft.
problem
High
with that.
upside player. We have a DST and a kicker spot left.
Get
So we'll
the best kicker first.
we'll move
now,
on.
if this
Tucker's available.
was a live draft, this is where, and my rules allowed it, I would say I'm not taking a defense. I'm going
Right.
to draft Josh McCown.
There you go. And you just hold on. And I would also take – so this would be the situation.
We did not have to draft a kicker or defense, so I took Josh McCown.
Yeah,
Well,
we did it,
Then
America.
if that's the case, then let me just make the argument. The next pick should be Robert Turbin. Because while we say don't draft handcuffs, and that makes sense, because you're going to drop him in week 1 if it doesn't work out. But if I'm going to drop him already before the season, what happens if old man Frank Gore comes up lame in the offseason?
You're saying if you were drafting right now,
Right.
like not that we're not pretending to be an August draft.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you would,
that's
if
my
you're drafting now, you take Turbin because you would want to. If tomorrow Frank Gore goes down with an ACL, at least you got the guy rostered.
Our draft grade will probably be terrible because we don't have a kicker or a defense, but who cares?
Yeah,
So what? Who
not
cares?
bad. So, all right, that is it for today's 2-quarterback mock draft. A lot different than what we're used to, obviously, with the 2 quarterbacks. Fun to talk through those things.
I hope everybody learned what I already knew, which is if you're in a 2-quarterback league, punt tight end to the end.
I don't know. What's our
I
final
really
roster?
like our team. I do.
Do we,
I really
where did
like
the
our
final
team.
roster go?
I'm going to pull it up. Hold on.
Who was on the board? at
Matthew
running back
Stafford.
when we got Gronk.
It doesn't matter. We got Gronk.
Matthew Stafford, Carson Palmer.
Gronk and you win. Sorry, Andy, go
Matthew
ahead.
Stafford, Carson Palmer, Devonta Freeman, Frank Gore, Antonio Brown, Sammy Watkins, Rob Gronkowski, Larry Fitzgerald with a bench of Willie Snead, Theo Riddick, Jeremy Maclin, Josh Doxson, Alvin Kamara.
That's a pretty good team.
Yeah,
It's
We're a little
it's
weak
mighty
at
fine
our
team.
running back depth. But
I'm not worried about it in a PPR situation.
I mean, if Gronk's playing 13, this team is a monster.
I agree. So that is it for today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we'll be back next week. Oh, yeah. This is Tuesday, right? I have to remember when we pre-record. This is Tuesday. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday. Hope you had a great Father's Day. I know I did.
I hope Monday yesterday was fantastic for you.
I hope Monday yesterday was very good. Thursday,
what is happening?
David Johnson on the show.
Now, wait.
Do not miss it. I'll tell you this. Here are some highlights from the interview. We asked him about Todd Gurley. I challenged him to a battle of some sort.
Is fisticuffs?
We
I don't
asked him
know. You'll
about
have to listen.
The injury and we asked him about John Brown. We asked him about a number of things. Great interview. Do not miss it. Jason, you look like you were going to say something.
It was as we were talking about how this is Tuesday, it dawned on me that people can listen to this after Tuesday. This very well could be Thursday. It could be any day of the week.
Hope you had a wonderful Wednesday.
Wonderful today.
Wonderful
I
today.
hope
Whatever you're doing.
your lives are just fabulous.
I think we're done with the show, guys.
Yeah, that sums it up. You can follow the draft along on youtube.com/fantasyfootballers. And if you want, a championship belt because you got a hashtag FootClan title, go to fantasyjocks.com. Promo code footballers.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.